Well, thank you, Kris, for joining us from the road. We really appreciate it. And thanks to all who are on the call today. We're going to go ahead and get started. I see we have 37 participants. I know we had more registered, so we'll probably have more people join us as we get started, but want to be just respectful of everyone's time today. So first off, welcome. I'm Megan Lynch. I'm the Director of Corporate Relations at North Central College and the Chair of the Corporate Social Responsibility Committee. We are thrilled to have such a great turnout of both nonprofit and business representatives here on the call today for our first ever CSR committee program on responding with purpose to COVID-19. The world, as we were just talking about, looks a lot different than it did when we first started talking about this committee about 6 months ago. And it really was the vision of Kaylin Risvold, CEO of the Chamber, to convene this group. I just want to stop here and say we hope that you and your families are staying safe and healthy during these challenging times. And thank you again for being here. As we will hopefully see, and I think you will in today's program, the topic of corporate social responsibility, or whatever you want to call it, whether it's corporate citizenship, ESG, just a purpose-driven approach to business, is more relevant in today's world than ever before. I know that you're looking forward to hearing from our exceptional panel of really what I think are purpose-driven leaders here in the Naperville community. I want to just make a few introductory comments. First, as you all are familiar with Zoom meetings by now, please just keep your mics muted. And we will have a Q&A discussion at the end of the program. So please write your questions for our panelists in the chat feature and we'll try to get to as many as possible. Today, our program format will consist of 3 components. First, we will have 3 case studies with Kris Hartner, Beth Lopez, and Tim Belgio, all business leaders representing different industries and different sizes of businesses. Next, we will hear from Shefali with Giving DuPage for a wrap-up of concrete actions that you can take to respond with purpose now. And finally, we'll end with that Q&A. Before we begin, I want to say a big thank you to our event sponsor, Bill Mitchell, who serves on our CSR Committee Advisory Board, and the Downtown Naperville Alliance. We so appreciate your support and partnership. I also want to thank the CSR Committee Advisory Board. You'll see the list in front of you now. It's a great group of purpose-driven leaders from the business, nonprofit, and government sectors, and it's truly an honor to work with this group, most of who are on the call today. So because the CSR committee is new, I wanted to share a quick introduction. As you will see here on the slide, from our perspective, in today's world, being a good corporate citizen is not only good for our community and our environment, but it's also good for business. The CSR committee is designed to bring together for-purpose business and community leaders to elevate the importance of corporate citizenship, to share best practices like we're doing today, and to highlight stories of how local companies of all sizes are making a positive impact. And you'll see here, these are some of the topics we're planning to cover in our CSR committee. People, planet, profit, employee volunteerism, sustainability, philanthropy, social impact. And we really plan to partner with our wonderful not-for-profit network at the Chamber, many of whom are represented on this call today. I know Abby Johnson's on the call and she's the chair of the committee for this year. So thank you for your partnership. So the question is, why now for focus on purpose? In this context where many businesses are really thinking about whether they can survive and thrive, why focus on purpose now? Isn't that kind of a nice to have in an ideal world? Well, I thought this article in Forbes was really timely. The topic was why purpose-driven businesses are faring better in COVID-19. And you'll see here the quote from CEO of Seventh Generation, Joey Bergstein. He says, "In the anxiety-producing environment of a global pandemic, people are more and more conscious of the things they buy, and the companies behind them. They're looking at what companies do through this crisis, and they'll support the companies that do the right thing. And we've all heard stories of companies that have not done the right thing, and those stories have been very public. But we've heard the stories of companies that are doing the right thing, and whether that's donating PPE or partnering with nonprofits in really creative ways, or supporting employees in the human side of business, or even shifting their business model to make products that support COVID response, like Two Brothers locally making hand sanitizer. They're great stories, and I think you'll see that in our case studies today. We have some great examples of Naperville businesses that are responding with purpose. And without further ado, I want to jump into those stories. For the case studies, I'll be doing just a brief introduction of our speaker, and then turning it over to them to share their story of purpose. And the goal is really to share concrete, practical, actionable ideas that these companies have taken that you might be able to explore for your own business or your own organization. So let's jump in with Kris Hartner, who, as we heard at the top of the meeting, is joining us from the road. Kris Hartner is the founder and CEO of Naperville Running Company. Kris has been involved in the athletic footwear industry for over 3 decades, including stints at Reebok and Adidas. In May 2000, he opened Naperville Running Company, in addition to being the only 2-time winner of Best Running Specialty Store in the United States. Naperville Running Company has also received the Naperville Area Chamber of Commerce Small Business Award of the Year. Kris serves on the board of directors for both the Downtown Naperville Alliance and North Central College. So let me turn it over to Kris.
All right. Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me. Kind of just do a quick, probably just a quick start of sort of our perspective and where we ended up early on, and kind of what it led to, I guess. So just kind of giving our, a couple-minute rundown, so you kind of see the world that we live in, which is interesting because I kind of, when you live in retail, you just kind of assume everybody would know, in the pandemic, how hard it is and what it means, and how it affects your business. But a lot of people, there's a little bit of misconception out there. I think early on, we just had to work on our communication to help have people understand a little bit better what we were dealing with. So just for the perspective, right before, we could see that this was getting pretty serious. Obviously, there were issues, throughout the world in January and February, and then it started hitting here in March, and we were having a record year. We're on our 20th anniversary is a week from today, and we hadn't had growth like that for a long time. So we ended the year on good growth, and then we started the year on really strong growth, up 20 to 30% the first couple months, and even in early March. And then, when things started going bad, and we kind of noticed this happened with the recession for us. When the stock market started going really bad because of this, it kind of spooked our overall clientele. And all of a sudden we went from doing well to, in that first third of March, to just kind of one day being down 30% and the next day being down 40%, in comparative to the same day last year. And so we just, we started planning. We if this is going this way, what are we going to do? And then it got real serious. We didn't, the state hadn't had stay at home yet or anything, but we just stopped. We had to close. We closed our doors. March, maybe 12th, 13th, 14th, somewhere in there. I don't have that date written down, but it will live in infamy. We went from, having record business to being down 90% the day we shut down. Our only business that we really did at that point was some call-in business. And believe it or not, we did not have an online business. We built it. We've done one. We tested an online store. We built one 10 years ago. And we just saw that we were sort of irrelevant in the larger space. I think a lot of businesses think, oh, our customers love us, so they'll all want to buy online from us, but it just doesn't quite work that way. But we finally found a good source for doing online business. We built that store. It was in the background. We were selling stuff, but we hadn't told anybody yet. We were waiting for one more major vendor to sign up and give us permission, but we had to pull the trigger. So we were down 90%. We were selling over the phone, and then we added virtual fitting. We added curbside pickup. We added home delivery, and then the online component. And so, we announced all that stuff, and it helped. Instead of being 90% down, we were only 80 or 85% down. And then that led to a whole additional string of thoughts, and that maybe gets into a little bit more of this discussion, was how are we going to operate like this? And if it gets worse and we have to just close and we can't do anything or ship anything, what are we going to do? So kind of this led into, and all of you understand, that probably the busiest 8 weeks of my life. And this initial part was, what's the math on this? How does this work? How much can we cut and still function? And just what's our break even every day? But my number one goal in that, Susanna and I, talked through it, and we wanted to keep our full staff. We did do a survey. I never thought we would do something like that, but we sent out a survey to our employees and asked them how much money do you need to make, basically. And they're just challenges, like it doesn't make sense. Like, do you need to work at our store? Do you need the money you make at our store? And I would never ask that. I wouldn't care if somebody worked at our store and they're, Elon Musk's, son. It doesn't matter to me. If you're working, you get paid. So, but we did ask. It was just the real world, and we just said, hey, if you don't need it, would you be willing to work less? And we had over half of our staff said, yeah, we're fine. And luckily, we have a lot of people that work at our business that do it because they love it, although, don't get me wrong, they all appreciate the paycheck. So, we went through the process of making sure we didn't have to cut anybody. We didn't cut any pay. And the bottom line is there's an expense to that, but we had a big meeting with the staff and shared with them what we were doing, that we're keeping everybody. And we appreciated the people that didn't need as many hours, and keeping everybody at full pay. But there's a cost to it, and we knew what that meant. If we had a $0 day, we knew that there's a big number that we lose. And I took the money that we had put away, and probably one of the good takeaways of this is, they always say you should have 3 months of operating income to live off of in case you have a problem, or a rainy day fund, as they call it. So luckily I had put that away, and we did the math, and we knew we could go 130 days without any revenue coming in to the store. Unfortunately, that would drain our entire, the money that we'd put away all those years and been really good about. And one plus on this is it does reinforce how hard we are on our vendors to make sure that we get the best terms and dating and discount, because it goes to more than just, my new bike or whatever, So we came up with that plan and shared it with everybody. Shared all the cuts that we were making in, expense wise, except for the employees. I'm not getting paid. My wife's not getting paid, which is fine with us. But the good news was we knew every dollar that we brought in would help extend the time that we had before we had to make more serious cuts, where we might have to consider reducing pays and all that kind of stuff. So it was more lengthy a process than you'd think to kind of go through and figure all that out. But we did. And then kind of the true next phase of that was all these new aspects of our business. Our income for the store, we do a little Amazon business. So that was 10% of our total business. 90% was customers coming in our store. And we had to, flip that entirely. And we're still losing money. It's still, I really am particular in how we talk about it to the community, because early on when we added all these things and we were down, we were down less, but we were still down a lot. I had to share out. As I mentioned earlier, our customers, our friends, our family even didn't understand that how much this impacted our ability to operate and to keep doing what we're doing. So I shared out with the community that we aren't doing great. We kept all our staff, so that's great, and that's my pride and joy. But we're getting crushed. But when people would ask me, they're like, "So how you doing? This is tough, right?" I'm like, "Yeah, and we kept our employees." And they're like, "Well, how about the business?" And I'd say, "Well, we're down 85 to 90%." And people to a person, were shocked. "Well, you have nice social media, you have all these new opportunities to sell." And, and they just didn't understand. So I felt like I had to share. So I went out to the community and shared it, pretty much more than I would want to share, but just so they understood the reality. And we had a really good response, and we kind of thought, and I didn't do it just to get a bunch of business for a couple of days. I did it because I wanted people to shop locally. That was my message. If you can. If you can't because of your certain circumstance right now, then we'll be here when you're ready. But the response was really good. And instead of being down, we're down 70%, 80%. Some weekend days we're still down 80 or 90%. But we also have our online business adds into that and some other things. So, we could do this for a while. It sounds like we might have to do this for a while. But like I say, we're doing less horribly. And, our team has been unbelievable in taking this on and recreating our business. So that's kind of the story.
Kris, thank you so much for sharing your story. Taking care of your people and the human side of business is such a huge part of responding with purpose, and we really applaud you. There's a great comment in the chat feature from Deb, who said, "Kris is our very own George Bailey, love him." So thank you for what you're doing and the example you're setting in our community. We'll have time for questions for Kris at the end, but I want to make sure we keep moving along. So we'll move on to our next panelist, Beth Lopez, who is marketing coordinator at Phoenix. In her role for Phoenix, which is an injection molding manufacturing company headquartered in Naperville, Beth helps tell the company's story through digital and content marketing. Phoenix has 4 plant locations across the country and is an integral part of the food supply production chain. Prior to joining Phoenix, Beth worked for 20 years in the financial industry, assisting financial advisors in authoring their individual marketing plans. So Beth?
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be part of this call today. Like Megan said, Phoenix, if you're not familiar with us, we are an injection molding company, which in short means we make plastic caps for a lot of the products you use. We do have 4 plants across the country, so one of the unique things we're dealing with in terms of employees and responding to this new environment with our employees is that we have an essential business or part of this food supply chain. So our 4 manufacturing facilities are still operating at 100%. As a matter of fact, because of the demand on a lot of our customers, we're getting demand from them. So we are actually quite busy right now. And then on the flip side, we have many employees that work in the corporate office here in Naperville that are now working from home. So we have really 2 kind of employee communities here that are dealing with COVID-19 and the challenges that come with that in 2 very different ways. So one of the things that we have expanded upon, I feel like Phoenix has always had a great communication with their employees, but during these challenging times, we've had to kind of adapt that communication in a couple of different ways. So one of the essential things that we've done is communicating the best way to combat the pandemic with the requirements we already have in place. As a manufacturer of a product that's associated with food, we've always had a requirement that we wash our hands every day when we enter the facility. So that's just been communicated even stronger. And then in addition to that, we have employees that work at the plant. We gave them each their own bottle of hand sanitizer. We made sure we put a big thank you on it, and then we purchased that hand sanitizer from local distilleries within the communities of each of our plants. So you know, the label on it says thank you for being part of our team. Here's some hand sanitizer that it had like Koval Distillery or whatever the distillery was that we purchased it from, so that they knew we were trying to support the community at the same time we're supporting them and making it as easy as possible for them to do what they need to do to come to work every day. Another important part of our communication with our employees has been making sure they feel safe and that they know how we're handling the situation. We have an outstanding HR department, and our HR leadership has been wonderful at making sure everybody has correct information, that they know how the company's handling our response to the virus. Reminding, we have our company's led right now by two brothers. It's been a family-owned business for 6th generation, and one of the brothers is actually in Qatar right now because he's a Air Force reservist, and he was called to duty in Qatar, and he sent a really wonderful video to every employee that talked about how we're 130 years old, this company, and we've survived world wars, we've survived depressions, recessions, and actually 5 other pandemics. So, you know, they're just instilling that confidence in our employees that, you know what, we'll get through it. It'll be a little weird for a little while. It'll not look the same. It'll feel different, but we'll do it. We'll get through it. And also just reminding our employees, take care of yourself first. You have a family, you need to take time off. If you need it, you have that available to you. Here's some resources that the company has always provided for you for your mental and physical health. You know, make sure you take advantage of that. And then the other communication we've been really encouraging amongst our employees is our positive encouragement of each other. Like I said, we have these two kind of employee communities, one that's working in the plant and another group of people that are working from home. This is also our 130th anniversary, so we had some things planned that obviously had to get canceled because we can't celebrate like we were planning to this year. So instead of kind of lamenting about it, we've switched the script, so to speak, and said, you know what, we're 130 years strong, and we use this hashtag. Our Facebook page has always been very employee focused, so we have used that in the past to make announcements. So and so got promoted, so and so got their master's degree, so and so had their baby, you know, and so now we've been using that Facebook page to show pictures of employees giving encouragement to other employees. So we had like a thank you campaign, I guess you could call it, from our work from home employees, where we literally held up signs that said hashtag 130 years strong. Thank you for coming to work and you know, managing this uncertainty and recognizing that our plant employees, from the perspective of people like me who are working from home, you know, recognizing, hey, we see that you are, you know, coming to work every day, you're working diligently at a time where we're having crazy demand, and we appreciate you. And in response, we've gotten very similar feedback from our plant employees saying, hey, we know it's not easy working from home. Everything's kind of turned upside down. We appreciate you too. And that's been unbelievably valuable the last couple of months. It's been great. One other thing I do want to point out, as a business of a larger nature, you know, we're a supplier to our customers, but we have suppliers that help us do our business well too. And one of the very first things we did was when everything started shutting down, our distribution providers, the truckers that come to our plants to make sure our product gets to our customers, really had difficulties. You know, every rest area was closed. They're not able to stop and get meals like they could before. So we made sure we had bags of snacks and a bottle of water for each truck driver that came to our plant. And we put a big thank you note on there and said, hey, thanks. We know this is like crazy difficult for you right now. We just want you to know that you're appreciated, and that we are, we love you. You know, we love what you do for us, and that we don't take you for granted. And that was very well received. So we've got a lot of positive feedback from that. And as a matter of fact, when I posted something about it on LinkedIn, a couple other companies said, hey, you know what, I'm going to do that too. And some of them have kind of gone above and beyond anything we could have ever imagined doing, and just taken it to the next level. So those are a couple of things we've been doing. I know there's another thing that we've made sure to do right from the get-go is a couple of our plants are located in some very small communities where we are the employer for a high percentage of the area that surrounds it. And one of the things we did immediately was made a donation to food pantries in each of those communities. You know, it's one thing to recognize that your employees are having their own stress of coming to work and navigating the possibility of, you know, if I leave my house, I might get sick, but they're also having friends and family and extended family that maybe can't work, can't go to, you know, and that adds stress to an employee when they go to work. They're thinking about somebody at home and how is that going to help? How can I help them? And so, you know, one of the things we made sure to do was make substantial donations to those food pantries that are serving the communities that our employees work on as well. So those are a few things that we've been doing, and hopefully that inspires some ideas for everybody else.
Thank you so much, Beth. I thought you shared great ideas, and there's some great comments in the chat feature thanking you for the idea on hand sanitizer and other ideas you shared. So thank you. There'll be a chance for us to ask questions of Beth later. So again, please feel free to write questions in the chat feature. And I just want to point out, you're hearing a common theme, just the human-centered approach that these businesses are taking to be purposeful in their response. You know, we all know that it comes down to each individual and to the community. And I think these companies are sharing some great ideas about how we can do that. So moving on to our next panelist, Tim Belgio, who is co-owner of Belgio's Catering, a full-service catering company in Naperville, which he founded with his brother Tom in 2000. Tim focuses on outside sales, marketing, and community engagement. He partnered with several not-for-profit organizations, including Naperville JCs, Naperville Exchange Club, Naperville VFW, Naperville District 203, Naperville Rotary Clubs, Naperville YMCAs, Naperville Noon Lions Club, and Naperville Women's Club. So lots of community engagements. He is a member of Naperville Sunrise Rotary and serves on the Naperville YMCA board. Tim?
Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining this presentation and putting it all together for us to share all of our great ideas. Well, as you know, we're a catering company, so we do special events and corporate events and weddings and name the gamut of things that might be a larger event. So when this whole pandemic came available to us, and we're looking at what do we do as a company from being still being in business, obviously keeping our employees working, staying engaged in our community. And we just started brainstorming, trying to figure out what's out there, what's next, what do we do? So we shifted gears completely and went to offering, we call them shelter in place meals. So we put together meals each week, 5 to 6 meal options for 4 people per option, and they can choose 1 or 2 days or what have you. And then we just started marketing it through our client base, through social media and everything. And that's been really receptive well, and we've been helping us keep everyone employed. I think this morning I calculated we're about 90% of our employees are still working what they had worked before year over year. Where we've had a little bit of a reduction is our bartenders and our servers on site. You know, because we're not having events, there's not really a place that we can plug them in at. So those are the individuals that we haven't been able to keep as busy as we would have liked to. And then in our business, you know, we do a lot of weddings, and this is the season we're going to with weddings. So we had to make a big decision. We have contract that said we didn't give refunds. We didn't. But because of this issue, we decided to give all monies back to people that we couldn't relocate their event at another venue or move it a month or 2 or 3 or 5 or 8 down the road, depending on this climate. So we've done that from doing the right thing, we think, as much as we didn't want to and tried not to. But if they can't have the event, it's not their fault. So we've given their money back for those things. This year we did Easter meals. Same concept as shelter in place meals, but we would deliver to your home, either hot or cold. And if we did cold, we gave you reheating instructions. So in our mind, you know, we would do 100-person, 200-person, 500-person events. And honestly, that's easier than doing 4-person events. We've learned through this process at the beginning, because we had to come up with new packaging, new holding, transportation of the products now, instead of doing it in full pans, making them individually. So really, it was a complete learning curve for our team at the beginning, trying to figure out how do we make sure it's quality, hot, and all those things that are pretty second nature to us on the large event side. So that was, we joke now because we've been in this for about 8 or 9 weeks, but early on we're like, this is crazy. And both of those things we're learning through what the market's doing too, from a packaging perspective. So they're coming up with new packaging to help our industry, you know, kind of do this as a norm now, the new norm, shall we say, for a while, hopefully not too long, but for a while, of keeping this process moving forward. We're working on doing individual meals now for corporations when they come back to work. Because what does that look like now? It's, you know, are we going to have a staff on site serving every individual guest? Or are we transporting the meals individually plated already in technology and packaging to make it be as seamless for them to be able to offer a meal for their employees if they choose to? And then how do we transport it as a company? Are we having it on site? You know, how do we keep it hot or keep it cold? You know, and all those real things that we're starting to explore through the packaging that's available to us as a company. And now, what is the new norm for our industry, right? I mean, we've looked at all of our industry leaders and health departments and all that, trying to get some guidance and some information from them. Like, what's our next phase? What's our next step as a company? What are we doing with events? You know, they're saying 10 people now. Well, you know, we need 100, 200, 300 for weddings and all those kind of events that we do that are larger. And they unfortunately don't have too much feedback yet. It's kind of like we're trying to walk before we run, and we're trying to stay ahead of it as a company so that we're relevant and we're doing the right things. We're being responsible. You know, because everything in our business is, you know, weddings, graduations, you know, all those events are now canceled all the way through, for us, all the way through August as a company. So the other stuff that we had done with local VFW, was one of the groups that we sponsor often and partner with often, is we did the fish fries. Well, we had about half of all those canceled because of this. So we had all this food that we were trying to figure out what do we do with it. So we partnered with a food pantry, and we cooked all the food, transported it there. Actually, we plated it on site in individual to-go containers. And as they brought their cars up to pick up their weekly meals, we were able to give them the hot food that we would have had to probably discard if we couldn't do that, you know. So we had 3 of our staff members there. We partnered with the DFW, and some of the veterans came to that location, and we did a community event with them. And it was really nice to hear people saying, I can't believe I have a hot meal. I haven't had a hot meal in months, you know. So it's really nice from a lot of work on our side, but really the right big picture, being a community involved company and just being human, to figure out how do we make people's lives just a little bit better in normal times, not in these crazy times. It's even more needed, we think, you know. So we were able to do that, and then trying to figure out what's next in terms of events. I mean, that's our toughest battle moving forward. We're just talking to all of our, you know, business people that are out there. What are you doing, like we're doing today, trying to figure out what the new norm is going to be. And we honestly don't know what that is as of yet. But those are the big things that we've done: is shelter-in-place meals, the getting involved with any nonprofits that we can to help take care of people that are less fortunate as well, even though the times are tough. Everybody has needs, and we're trying to figure out how do we stay relevant, how can we lend a hand and help. And we're always looking for new ideas from our staff perspective, because they're feeling just like we all are as a community and as a country. It's really challenging times, and trying to figure out how do we all walk and continue on this path. And we've been very fortunate. The path that we've taken during this just on crazy times is really feeling like people are needing it, wanting it, and appreciative of what we're doing. So we feel like we're contributing as a company, to our staff and to ourselves and to our community to be able to do this, even though it was a learning curve on our front side, to be perfectly honest. We're like, well, this is crazy. But it's nice to have that information, that we know that we've, able to do this kind of a thing for people. It's like completely opposite from larger events, but it is, it's needed in our current culture and current times.
Thank you so much, Tim, for sharing your story. And you made a point that I think is a great one that ties back to the Forbes article I referenced before, and that's that purpose-driven companies are more innovative in times of crisis. And I think you and your team have shown that. There are a number of comments in the chat about how the shelter-in-place meals are great. I have personally tasted them and can vouch for that. So your innovation and your continued support of the nonprofit community, even during difficult times, is really inspiring. So thank you to all three of our wonderful panelists for sharing your case studies. Again, we'll have a chance to ask questions at the end, so please write your questions in the chat feature. But I want to just make a mention of a few resources that you might want to check out after this call. One I referenced, our not-for-profit network at the Chamber. When you think about nonprofits to partner with, please consider one of these Chamber members. These are organizations that really make our community what it is, and they're shouldering a really heavy load right now. I also want to mention Giving DuPage, just a shout out before Shefali speaks, a wonderful resource for volunteer opportunities if you want to have your employees engaged in virtual volunteerism, or there's so many in-person needs in the nonprofit community, and this is the resource to go to. And then finally, I wanted to mention DuPage Foundation, our community foundation here in DuPage County, which has really taken on a leadership role in pooling resources to support our nonprofit community in starting our COVID-19 response fund for our county. I think Dave McGowan was on our call earlier. I'm not sure if he's still able to be on. He had to drop off for a call, but they've done a great job of raising, I think, over $1.2 million in support of our nonprofit community. So that's another place to look. So moving on, I want to deep dive more into those practical, actionable steps that we can all take to respond with purpose. And there's no one better positioned to talk about that than Shefali Trivedi, who's Executive Director of Giving DuPage. Shefali has a 30-year career in marketing, sales, and project management, including a 15-year background in the nonprofit and government sectors. During her tenure, Giving DuPage has increased volunteer engagement by 250%, generating 5 daily volunteer connections via their volunteer portal. Also, Giving DuPage launched Do Good DuPage, the largest service project in county history, and Giving DuPage Days in 2020, an online community fundraiser benefiting 80+ charities. Shefali is a sought-after speaker with chambers, schools, community, and faith groups. In 2019, she was a recipient of the Most Influential Women in Business Award with the Business Ledger. Shefali?
Thank you, Megan. I want to echo what you said at the start of the call. We are thinking of you, praying for you. You are on our minds, for all hoping and praying that everyone is safe and doing well from a health perspective, and praying for those who might not be doing so well. So just want to start out with that proper intention. So thankful to the Naperville Chamber for this opportunity to engage in this conversation about responding with purpose. From the nonprofit community side, as Megan mentioned, it has been a tough and trying time, right? A lot of nonprofit organizations are seeing demand for their services go up, whether it's food and hunger issues, or housing and homelessness issues, or mental health issues, and even domestic violence. These things are on the uptick, whether we want to sort of admit it or not. It's tough, and even just families and youth and education programs all being really impacted. So we appreciate what a resounding message you're sending by having almost 60 chamber members, or plus 60 plus chamber members on this call. Thank you for that. Probably the first sort of, how can you respond? Responding with empathy, as you can see on our slide. All of us might know someone who needs help right now, or we will soon, probably, as this crisis continues, know people who do need help. And where do they go? We are blessed to be in a county full of resources for this exact answer. You're not trying to, as a business, duplicate or replicate efforts, or even become the business that is communicating and becoming like a communications warehouse for this kind of thing. But it is important to share this information for those valued relationships that you have, whether they're with your customers, or your employees, or whomever, your employees' families, whomever that is. You want to make sure that they know that in DuPage County, if you want to go online and find out how you can get help, doesn't matter what the help is, housing, legal, mental health, whatever, you can go to DuPageCris.org. That's DuPageCris.org. You can also call the county's information referral line. That numbers that I put on the slide, 407-6500, or an 800 number, receives over 65,000 calls every year. It is the place to go if you're a DuPage County resident and you know someone who needs help. Obviously, public health and safety are really important. If you haven't been to the DuPage Health Department's website, they have a dashboard of the most current and recent information. It's really nice and visually laid out in a simple way. But it's important in this sort of, we're not sure what's misinformation and real information, and that is localized real information from the health department. And we also want to make sure that people who are in crisis, who are experiencing some mental health issues, I think we all can talk about how we're feeling more anxious or fearful or uncertainty, bringing a lot of that on. The health department has provided from the very beginning of this crisis a 24-hour crisis hotline. That's 24/7, 365. If you know someone who needs that resource, please direct them there. I forgot to include on this slide, and I'll talk about the next one, but I forgot to include about employment resources, right? So the Chamber, of course, is a resource, but in DuPage County, we also have WorkNetDuPage.org, and they have even training opportunities and grants to offer professional training, perhaps for people who have been furloughed or laid off. So that's another resource for folks. How can you as a business respond with resources? Often people think that means money, and sometimes it doesn't. And in this case, I'm asking everyone to sort of think not just monetary support, which of course the charitable organizations need, but it can be simple, it can be small, it can be creative. For example, what if all of the businesses on this call decided to create awareness for their favorite cause or their favorite charity on their social networks? What if you posted 2 or 3 times a month to share about your favorite charity? You could make it a walk down memory lane and share photos from the last time you did an employee volunteer event, or maybe your company took part in a charity 5K. That's a great way to engage your employees, and also a great way to let the charity know you're thinking about them. Just by sharing, so no donations, nothing, but just by sharing, you'll actually, and if you tag the charity or if you give a reference to their website, you'll probably end up getting donors for them. You'll probably find that some of your friends and family and whomever you are on social with will end up donating to that cause, because some people are able to give, even if it's a small donation right now. So just the act of sharing and creating advocacy, believe me, the nonprofit organizations who are on this call would be very grateful for you to bring some attention to whatever their cause or their area is. If one of your values is giving back, then maybe you can respond by making donations of items right now. So a great example is what Tim just shared. He had food that was going to go bad, and why would you do that when there's such a great need, right? Maybe this is the time when you're going to do, if your business is closed, you're going to do some spring cleaning of your business. Are there items that are still good and in working condition that you can donate to organizations? You know, responding with purpose might be responding with resources in this situation might be repurposing your business. So, for example, a clothing manufacturer reached out to us early on, and they knew that they weren't going to be in the clothing manufacturing business, but they thought they could easily adjust their machines to start making masks, and that's what they, I think, ended up doing. Another example is a big internet provider that had already had a program in place for under-resourced schools and families, and so then they extended that program and made it free for 3 or 4 months. Zoom made a really great example of repurposing their business when they realized that physical distance was going to become a thing, and their company had a solution. They removed some of the limitations they had in their free basic model, and they went from having 10 million users daily in December to over 200 million users. That these companies thought about how can we repurpose what we do, or how can we do what we do but in a different way. Another sort of asset exchange is thinking about your core business. So there's a marketing company that we work with, and they decided they were going to offer digital marketing grants to nonprofit organizations. They are going through, they just put together a basic application process, and they want to donate their services to those organizations who are struggling. And right now is a great time for those nonprofit organizations to spend time on their websites or wherever that they have been sort of putting off for a while. And that marketing grant extended to them by a local business was a very generous thing for them to do. Does your company have a box truck that somebody can use, whether it's a food bank? Does your company have a big physical space? Can you host a blood drive? By the way, if you want to do that idea, let me know. I can put you in touch with the local blood bank. So if you have assets to donate or repurpose or exchange, let us know, because there are hundreds of nonprofit organizations, and you can just think outside of the box a little bit. Also cited, Megan shared our volunteerism resources. She mentioned virtual volunteering. There are at our volunteerism website, givingdupage.org/volunteer, currently virtual volunteering for marketing skills, web editing, graphics design. This is the time where if you have those skills, or your company has those skills, or your employees have those skills, or just your teenager has those skills, good chance for them to use them. And there's a statewide website as well that I shared, and the pages for the urgent volunteer needs are updated often. So what it looks like this week may be different than what it looks like next week. Megan also mentioned the DuPage Foundation's response fund, but they're also a great resource for some of the tax incentives that people can, you know, sort of take advantage of under the CARES Act. So there are some special tax incentives. And so if you are someone who's giving charitably, whether it's your business or you as an individual, please know that they're a resource for that. Impressive what they were able to do with this response fund. Within about a month's time, from when the World Health Organization declared a pandemic, the DuPage Foundation was able to create a local emergency response fund for COVID resources, and also create an application, receive out grant applications, and distribute dollars in a first round to 8 local charities within about a month. That's the very definition of responsiveness from our local funding organization. So I want to say kudos to them. So those are some of those ideas. And finally, you know, I think there's this notion that there's so much over communication happening right now, and that's true. But I'm here to suggest that your silence is not always golden. And in this situation, we've heard examples, so many examples, that you have to communicate, right? I mean, to be if trust and transparency are one of your values as a company, then being transparent with your customers, with your employees, that's a part of it. And communicating, you know, what are you up to? I've been on many virtual meetings and calls. It was nice to actually hear from some of the people that I get emails from and whose email list I'm on. Didn't matter what their company was. I just was glad to know, hey, they're either doing okay or this is what's happening. And I've gotten a couple of those, and I bet you feel the same way. When you hear an update from a company, that communication mattered to me, even if I'm a regular customer or not. I'm just a part of their stakeholders. Also, you're going to decide, sort of what you communicate, right? How often, when. The thinking outside of the box with that too. If you're a company that still has a business that's happening right now and you have an electronic receipt that you send out, maybe you can create a little video of you and your employees, or you or your business in that electronic receipt as a thank you, and telling folks what you're up to. That's a really small, quick idea, link to a video. That's a 30-second or 1-minute video, but another in-person human touch to what you're doing. Make a list of your values, whatever they are: trust, transparency, you heard it here, public safety, health, people first. Make a list of those values and then start sharing how you're living your values out loud. And right now, out loud means on social, via email, via phone calls, communicating to your to all of your valued stakeholders. Finally, I want to just remind you that it matters to give hope. It matters to be positive. I bet if you look at the slide, the thing that you're not noticing is all my silly words, but what you're reminded of is the happy picture of the kids. And so I threw that up there just to say your human reaction to seeing a happy picture, a positive picture, smiling kids, like that just conveying that in a photo or in an email with people will bring some joy and bring some hope to folks, and just remind people of the humanity and that we are in it together. So those were some of our ideas.
Thank you so much, Shefali. I think those were really great, actionable ideas that we can all walk away with, having learned from this call, in addition to the great insights from our panel. We've gotten lots of comments saying thank you for the tips, so thank you for that. And I do want to shout out to Giving DuPage for raising, with Giving DuPage Days, wasn't it like 250,000 plus, Shefali, for 80 nonprofits, which is really remarkable.
We were so close. We actually raised over just shy of $230,000, which we felt was great for our first year. And yes, you're right, for 82 local charitable organizations. We couldn't have been happier. It was such a risk to sort of host a virtual fundraiser for so many charities in this year of all years. But one thing I always know for sure is people are kind. People are good, and our community, specifically in DuPage, I just felt very strongly that they would be responsive, and boy, did you guys. So
right.
Thank you all.
And I think that these, to your point, Shefali, the positive and positivity that all these companies are sharing today is inspiring. And there was a note in the comments about how great it is to hear these stories and how we wish we could hear more of them. I want to give a shout out to NCTV for doing a great job of capturing these stories in their broadcasts, and the other local media that are doing that. One of the things we want to do as a CSR committee is to highlight these stories. And so we're excited to launch this committee this year. There's opportunities to get involved and plug in and to share stories. So please reach out to me. We'll be sending a follow-up email to all attendees with my contact information. So I look forward to hearing from you. We'll also be sending out these slides. I know that's something that people have asked in the comments as well. We've had some great questions. I know we have about 6 minutes left, so we won't have time to get to them all. But I do want to ask a couple questions that have been asked here. First, going back to our 3 case study panelists, could you share one of the greatest learnings that you've had so far about responding with purpose to COVID-19? Let's go back to Kris.
Sorry, I just had to unmute that there. Am I back?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Probably the greatest thing, I would say, there's probably a couple things, but just the communication. It's been, this doesn't really have to do with a lot of what we're talking about, but communication, person to person, phone calls, longer phone calls, being able to not be in such a rush, even though we're busy. I think hopefully I can take from that. I mean, part of it's been, we've been in the van and driving some distances. So I've had this time to just have conversations with people that I would normally rush through, but also we had to have really important conversations. Every employee that we have that, said they didn't need to work as much, I called, and made sure that they were okay with that. And I made them all promise that if they needed help or they needed hours back, they'd let us know. and just had great conversations with that. And there's just, there's a lot of things that you do that you can't get the same information unless you talk to somebody one-on-one. So I've really appreciated that, and probably that maybe the extreme is the case too. When people are stuck at home with each other for too long, they'd rather not see each other. But that's been my learning, and it's very. I think it'll be really useful going forward.
Thank you, Kris. What about you, Beth?
I think probably one of our biggest challenges was, we're so used to being close to each other in proximity. In terms of corporate employees and plant employees, and having to navigate that physical change, it really brought home the importance of using the communication tools that we've already established. So really just echoing what Kris was saying, I think this pandemic has just kind of highlighted that need for great communication. And to Shefali's point, one of the things that we've really utilized more than ever in the last few weeks has been our social media, and highlighting those other organizations we're working with. When we made our donations to the local food pantries, I made sure to tag them on those posts so people were aware that these organizations also need some help. And I think one of the things that that's kind of important to recognize is everybody that's talked today has a significant ethos, that they're already following, and what they've done, Tim and Kris and Shefali, that just enhanced what they already do, just have done it in a different way, have pivoted, or use those channels they're already using to a different degree. And I think that's an important thing to recognize, that in times of crisis, we don't really change what we do, we just enhance what we're already doing well. And I don't think it needs to be a monumental undertaking. It's just a time to be more genuine and a little more thoughtful about how we communicate. And I think that's been a good learning for everybody, really.
Thank you, Beth. That's great. Tim, what about you?
Our biggest pride change is we do a lot of social media posts, and just to keep ourselves in front of our clients and in front of family and friends and people in our community, just always showing that we're still here, we're still looking for new ideas, looking for options, and just that we're relevant. We really are trying to be, and we fight it on our side because we're wondering what's too much. So I don't want to be intrusive to people and keep posting and emailing them and calling them, and so we're just trying to find the balance. And really, I think they like to see people are doing things and they're experiencing things, and we get a lot of positive feedback and comments from a lot of our social media posts that we put out, and just really enjoying that there's people doing things, and the food is great, or the comments are great, or the service is great. And so all those are just keeping us in front of our clients as well. And it's been an interesting balance for me, just not doing too much, but kind of keeping it in front of them and available to them to at least know that we're here and doing creative things.
Wonderful, thank you. And I know we're actually almost out of time, but I want to give Shefali just, a very quick, 20-second, what's your takeaway that you've learned from this crisis?
It's just, sorry, I'm overcome with emotions, right? Because I'm reading the comments. It is so nice to think that we are in this together. We are not alone. And so I have had this emotional journey for the last 2 months with you, but it's nice to have community here, so thank you. That's my takeaway. Great reminder. Sorry.
No, that is such a perfect way to end this, Shefali, because I feel the same way, and I think all of us do. I am so honored that we have such a great large group with us today. Thank you for being here. We hope this is just the first of many conversations on this topic. It's clear that this is a topic that's relevant and that touches all of us where we are right now today. So thank you so much for being with us today. Look for that follow-up email, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. And we just want to thank our sponsors one more time, Bill Mitchell and the Downtown Naperville Alliance. Thank you everyone so much for joining. It's been so great.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was awesome.
Yeah, very nice. Very good.
And thank you to all of the panelists. You did a great job. So thank you so much for sharing your stories. We really appreciate that. And thanks, Kris, for joining us from afar. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It was excellent.
Great. Glad you could be here.
Yeah, great job.
Thank you, Laura. We're so glad you're here and you're part of the committee. Thank you.
Well done, Megan. Thank you so much. This was great.
Thank you, Casey, and thanks for your involvement in the committee. Really appreciated.